Welcome to the top secret recording of To Boldly Watch. You're watching Behind the Scenes, episode 205. Welcome.
Yeah. Welcome.
Ha.
How did that start? Did it start with the end of Xander's sentence?
I don't know.
I don't know. Well, who knows what happened before that?
First, To Boldly Watch with a bold new haircut.
Oh, right? Thank you, Becca. So it happened about 2 weeks ago, but I liked it.
It looks good.
Fun by Katie. Oh, yeah, you did too, huh? Looks good.
Oh, yeah.
Mine's more dramatic.
Xander, how often do you rotate your haircut?
I've got my haircut, not very often, but I've got
the color.
A purple conditioner, a blue conditioner, and like a turquoise. And in the morning, I'll just kind of grab one and see what happens.
Oh, it's like a grab bag.
So you do a color conditioner every day?
Not every day. Sometimes I get lazy and it just turns white.
That's amazing.
That doesn't come from like a fright.
It's like your head's a whiteboard.
It is. It is. It also like refracts light pretty well with whatever the color lamp I have in.
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever clash with your own decor?
Well, no, because I just keep it all in the cool family.
Great advice.
Yeah.
I went into an actual salon and wore a mask the whole time, and it was the first time I'd gone since I checked my text messages with my hairdresser, and I saw her March 11th, and lockdown was March 13th.
Wow. Yeah.
And I hadn't gotten my hair done since then.
You should have just put it up in a ponytail and chopped it with a sword.
I thought about it. I thought it would make a fun video, but also I didn't know if I'd do something irreparable.
Oh, you're right. It's just hair.
Like chop off her own other arm.
Oh, well, that.
Entirely possible if you give me something sharp.
The sword would have to be very sharp.
Well, all my swords are very sharp.
Interesting. Good to know.
Hey, do you guys watch anything good recently?
I think so. It's hard to tell.
I didn't.
The shade.
I liked it, I think. I walked away and like enjoying it, but also feeling bored. I don't know.
Bored?
A little.
Oh.
Hey, what did we watch?
I want to go the whole episode without mentioning that it's Star Trek or episode Loud as a Whisper. Can we try that?
It'd be a fun guess what series that's from.
That's right. It's season 2, episode 5, Loud as a Whisper. The Enterprise brings
what? Sorry.
The Enterprise. You're like Picard at full volume. We're in this together. The Enterprise brings a deaf negotiator to mediate the end of a planetary civil war.
This episode is bonkers. Yeah. What? This white guy has 3 white slave people that have to talk for him and must walk around behind him their entire lives because their ancestors did?
He's Riva.
Right.
Anybody with like a one-word name like that kind of carries like a certain gravitas.
Sounds like your country singer.
The thing is, I was thinking about this the whole episode in the same mindset, and I'm like, if we didn't treat this like they were humans and lived in a human way, then maybe there's something to be said. These are alien life forms that maybe are symbiotic. I mean, we haven't met them yet, but we have the Trill or something like that where these relationships exist and we don't know, maybe the people that act as the chorus, that's the only life that they know because that's genetically how they can function and they're happy. So you can't take, a human perspective with it. But again, that's giving it a big old grain of salt.
Right. They cast human actors to play what could have been floating blue orbs of light.
Right. Yes.
Yes. And without CGI, a huge CGI budget, especially for the time, I see how human actors made most sense. And we never heard these 3 chorus members say anything from their own point of view. It was only speaking on behalf of Riva. But they have to shit and eat and probably can have sex. So, like, of course they have motivations.
They do speak as individuals a couple times. When Riva goes off with Troy and Passion, is that what Passion is called? The most mulleted of the men.
Many feelings about this we'll get into.
But they do say, we are not needed right now. Do you have beds for us? They seem to have some sense of self, but really they have only one purpose beyond that sense of self, which is to be a third of his personality, of his voice.
The other thing to consider too, if we're thinking of Starfleet, it would be the same thing as like a captain plus a couple of officers. They come together and they're a unit, and it could be that they've offered their life in this service, and it's something that they choose because that's the future that we live in.
Yeah. But there's something about his line, right? His lineage is full of people that have his same issue of, I don't know if it was it just deafness, or was there other, did they call it anything else?
Pulaski says he cannot process audio information in his brain. So even if you were to give him some sort of cool implant, he couldn't interpret information that way.
Pulaski.
I took out the N.
It's not right.
But you brought in the contempt.
Yeah, it's there and it will never go away. Anyone who establishes that their character is defined by bigotry towards data is done for me from day one. Goodbye.
Let's hold for 1 second. I'm hearing a little bit of an echo when Xander speaks. Is someone have speakers on?
It's probably the volume of my headphones. Let me switch headphones.
Yeah, because if I pick that up in the audio, then it's going to be hard for me to get it out.
I didn't think about that. Ooh, so many different audio options because I keep just buying more headphones.
I think another bonus episode idea is going to be the trial of Dr. Pulaski with Becca on the prosecution and Xander on the defense. And then I think I'm too impartial to be the judge. I think I could maybe be the judge, but I think we need a jury as well.
Right.
Because I kind of on the Pulaski side, and I don't want to be biased. But.
Listen, I was in mock trial all through middle and high school. I will bring a case.
Cool.
Okay, hold on, please. Don't say anything loud so I don't blow out my ears. Okay, how's that?
Sounds good. Oh, this is too close for me. I'm backing this up.
Okay. Check.
Hello.
We have adjusted audio. I am ready to commence. This is him talking.
I was wondering about like the 3 orbs versus 3 people kind of situation, because it did kind of feel weird to have like 3 individuals represent this, but it also felt like a very stage, like a theater kind of way of doing it. Because if you notice in the first conversation, he stands on like the podium while the 3 kind of stand in front of him. And then when he approaches Troy, they all reform back up on the podium to represent his voice behind him as he takes center stage.
Totally a Greek chorus.
Yeah, yes, exactly.
Interesting. Yeah. From that perspective, I love it. If I saw this on stage, I would have a completely different perspective. I think that the problem of early television, which this isn't because there is CGI, the problem of early television is it tries to put theater on stage, not yet comprehending that it's a new medium that requires storytelling in different ways and is not as abstract as theater can be.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. But I also think it is pretty early in TV when you think about it, because TV advancements are happening so rapidly throughout the 20th century. And even now, too, like we can show so much more than we were able to show. And to the point to like even hair and makeup is done vastly differently because of how good the cameras have gotten now. And the same goes for like what we can do on a set versus what can really look like real CGI on TV or look like a real effect as opposed to what was clearly green screen for so long.
Yeah, and you bring up an interesting point with makeup because Deanna Troy's foundation is definitely 2 levels too light for her skin tone.
Yeah, they go back and forth on her, and I think it's partial lighting, partial makeup. It's a real shame. Let's actually talk about this episode a little more chronologically. So we are
cluck, mother hen.
That is my second note. That is true. Cluck, number 1 is the they're on their way to of course I'm gonna forget it. They're the Enterprise is on its way to pick up Riva, a mediator for for a war-torn planet of Solace,
which sounds like soulless.
Solace 5. And so the entire teaser, the whole before the credits synopsis is pretty much, we're going to go pick him up. We should look at this cool planetary graph from the last mission, which we don't really talk about. Right. We beam onto his New Mexico like Bond villain lair, and then it ends. Like we don't even see anybody. That was such a weird way to end the teaser. It's like, look at this interior. Done.
I had to rewind and watch again and say, oh, I must have missed something if this is the moment they would go to break.
Yes.
Nothing happened. They showed up. They were like, no one's here to greet us.
I wonder if it was like they were going to take too long to explain his issue and take too long with the confusion of, do we look to him or do we look to the voices? And they're like, well, we can't fit this in the teaser. So let's just show this really cool mosaic we made in the back with some pillars.
Great.
That'll be fun.
And the scariest thing here is the set design. Put a break.
Yeah. I wanted to ask too, because I wasn't sure. Is this the first time that we've sort of encountered the captain's not supposed to go on away missions?
Oh no, that was brought in like the very first episode. That was like one of reasons for Riker and
getting hired,
butting heads. Yeah.
Yeah, because I was gonna say we haven't heard that in a while, and now that this is coming up again, and I'm like,
because Picard was behaving for a while.
Yeah.
There were like a few episodes where Picard went down, and we all even called it out. We're like, he's not supposed to do that.
Right. And one of the things in my head while I was watching that, I had that go off in my head again, like, Captain's not supposed to go. And I'm like, we are living in a made-up future universe where the captain is pretty much the main character of the show. Why did they make up that rule, and why is it still a thing?
Well, I think we talked about it in the early episodes, which is my theory on it is they wanted to split the Captain Kirk essence into two different people and have Riker go do the adventure-y hunk-based things and Picard be the more skilled tactician strategist. Also gets his hunky moments as well. Yeah, he still gets his hunky moments too, for sure.
But why are they bringing it up again? Like, I thought we were past that.
They always need to bring a sense of tension to this, right? I mean, that's the whole problem of some of these Star Trek plots is that there's tension in one act. So they have to ratchet up the tension in other acts. And they didn't really do it very successfully. That's why we had to rewind the teaser, as Becca mentioned, to see if we even missed something important, because there wasn't much importance.
Yeah.
Well, there is something very important after the break, and I want to talk more about the things that each of these aspects of this Riva character's voice represents. So you've got the dude with a white beret and a dress that, sorry, a scant.
Well, it felt like the uniform a Mormon wears in their temple a little bit.
Yeah. He's intellect,
in your
philosopher,
background.
Dreamer, poet.
Yeah. It's got a very like Korean dress silhouette where the waistline is up here.
That's an empire waist.
Right.
What are those? Are those ruffles on his arms? What are those?
They're great. I love
these. They're great. Yeah.
They're not ruffles so much as tears.
Yeah.
Oh, like, tiers. Got it. Like tiers, levels.
Flaps.
Yes. Yeah, a ruffle has more gathering.
Yeah.
I took costume design and then switched into a different class because it was way harder than I thought in college. But I have the textbook.
I took costume design and then worked in the costume shop so I wouldn't have to be in the woodworking class and set design.
That sounds legit. Now, the set design I actually loved. I made a flat.
Right.
I took anthropology.
So the second is also the men have to go before the women. So the next one is passion, lover, and warrior. And anytime Troy, the only woman who really has a big part in this episode, is addressed, it's not by the intellect, it's by the gonads. Representation, the physical representation of the gonads is the one that speaks to her from the very beginning.
How do you will you describe passion's distinction again one more time?
The mullet.
No. What word did he use? What part of his personality is he?
I am passion. I represent the lover and the warrior and some other things I didn't write down.
The word that you missed was the big one, which is the libido, which is really what
I blocked that out. I purposely didn't write that down. I was already offended enough.
Lover to make it nicer.
Now, let's flip this a little bit and say that that Riva is like pansexual or bisexual, and this is a polyamorous relationship that he has with these people. Then he also has feelings for Troy, and he's in love with the one that represents passion and the libido, and they're actually the couple. What about that?
But he leaves during their moment of more intimate nature on the first date, right?
As you would with maybe your first in a polyamorous relationship.
But you don't excuse your libido from the
options of polyamory. I really thought this guy was going to watch, you know?
Right.
I know, me too.
But they instead decide to interpret language or create language from the base of zero comprehension. We'll get to that because we haven't yet met harmony, wisdom, and balance, that which binds, which of course the woman has to keep everything together. I did like that she was wisdom.
Wait a minute, you seem unhappy about the woman's role no matter what.
That's correct.
The most important.
Jake, I'm a feminist, so that's what it means to be a feminist.
What does it mean to be unhappy? You're playing into the bad tropes of this problem.
Well, I got a little annoyed when the first thing was I am that which binds. So basically, I am just like in between all these other men. I have to, stick it all together. But then she got some cool things, which were wisdom and balance.
Right. Yeah, it could be worse if she was like the libido and she was just referenced as like the love interest portion of it, right?
That actually would be really hot if she dirty talked to Troy. So
but then
I do want to rethink this.
You'd be like, but she's not the rational one. Because they can't think because she's all about sex, right?
No, actually, I would be totally for that characterization.
Okay. All right.
And it's funny because I gave them the smallest amount of credit for even having a woman at all as part of his personality.
Good point.
Yeah.
I want you to give out a card from now on, Xander, that just says the smallest amount of credit to people. Just barely
you tried.
Almost did a spit take there, but I swallowed
it. So we meet the chorus. We pretty quickly figure out that we don't address them. We need to address Riva himself.
And Picard has a really great correction and apology of this misstep. I really like that moment of this is who Picard is, that he immediately acknowledges his mistake and he's not afraid to apologize for it and correct.
It was a good handling of the situation.
I'll give him the smallest amount of credit for that.
I forgot also that Passion, there's another line that Passion says that I wrote down, which is, I am the anarchy of lust.
Oh, right.
Whoa.
I remember thinking about that, and I was like, what do you mean?
That line is a good opportunity to have him have some conflicting feelings aboard the ship and actually get a little out of control with his emotions. But he's actually pretty calm and cool around Troy. She actually gets more upset with him than vice versa.
But
what do you mean? I mean, these three you call them calm, but they embody every passion that Data could never replicate later in the episode. And then they had to give Data the note. Can you act less well? And in this next scene, we stop between each word because it's really coming across like you're way better at being the chorus than the chorus ever was.
Right. Well, if we're going down that, I'm
jumping ahead. I'm sorry.
A full laugh out loud moment with Data for the thank you, thank me. It was so good, and it felt like an outtake that they left in, and just because it was acted so well.
It feels like, in the 23rd, is it this 24th century? The 24th century, that 23rd century? Whatever century.
I'm going to say 24th.
I think it's 24th. It feels like they would have at least known of sign language, even if it's been outdated because either advancements in medical technology or genetics, or that there have been other supplements, including, reading and writing, which you think would have been some bit of an issue in this. I think in the notes that I read, they had a scene or even a line about the fact that his lineage doesn't read and write, which is why he can't write stuff down.
Right.
Why did they?
How did they design these sweet clothes without drawing patterns?
Yeah,
they drew the patterns, but they don't have measurements.
Right. Well, I wondered because this is coming out in this era of the we want to educate people with entertainment too, and this feels a little bit like a PSA in its essence about this disability, because you have this B plot kind of with Geordi also going down this road of exploring what does this mean to live with these disabilities. And I wonder if they had a sensitivity counselor on there to be a part of it or anything, or if they just went, this is an alien, so who cares? But
I'm going to say probably the who cares.
Yeah.
Because sensitivity counselors in Hollywood weren't a thing yet, but I'm glad they are now.
Yeah. Well, there is a bit of an answer to this. The actor who played Riva is deaf, and his name is Howie Sago, I think is how you pronounced it. And he petitioned the producers to create a show about deaf people, in part to dispel untrue and prejudiced myths about them.
Okay, well then I have a lot of notes I need to erase because a lot of them were about Riva's acting, and now knowing that this is actually their life.
Right.
It changes my perspective.
Well, that's interesting. I want you to not erase the notes and let's talk about it, because it doesn't mean a deaf person can't be a bad actor, but also like the way that they represented what they were doing is interesting, right? He petitioned them to do this. And so I think in the original version of the script, I'm trying to piece this together from the notes that I have. In the first draft, Riva actually learned to speak overnight with a mechanical translator. He used to communicate when his chorus either died or like they failed in their mission or whatever. And he petitioned to change that. So it's not like my deafness is not the issue here. Right. Communication is the issue, and talking it out and turning a disadvantage to an advantage. And so that's a really good awareness of the problem of representing disabilities or other people with other, how do you say it, Xander?
Oh yeah,
differently abled.
Yeah, whatever you want to say is like, that's the problem of like trying to quote unquote solve it, and that's not necessarily a problem.
Well, and I'm glad that you said that too, because of course, all of us are kind of on the outside of this, but I know for deaf people particularly, there's a culture that comes with the territory that is very active, and it's good to know that was represented.
Yeah.
Right. And to talk about Geordie and how blind people are represented, we do have the modern analogy of they were the only ones that survived in Bird Box. So that should be noted.
Right.
The interesting thing about the Geordie part of this was like, I love the same like talk about, oh, well, if I have eyes now, there's no going back to how it was, which isn't necessarily true. I guess he could blind himself, but like,
oh God, we don't know if he could use infrared in the same way if he did that.
But what I really appreciate about how the way Star Trek treats his blindness is it doesn't define his character. In fact, most episodes that involve Geordie don't even reference his blindness. Mm-hmm. He's much more important for a variety of other reasons, including,
I would say, his sassy eyebrows determine his character.
Visually, his blindness is a component to us in terms of his visual character, like the way we see him. Right. But like in terms of what he does or how he's addressed all the time, it rarely comes up, and I appreciate that.
I think of sweetness and building miniature models of boats.
Right.
So
yeah, that was such an well. Let's keep talking since we're talking about the Geordie scene. I mean, what is this decision? I'm really, Geordie sees more than we do. It's like it would diminish your visual capacity by 20%. Well, you wouldn't have the pain though.
That was if he had the implants that would offer the same spectral range that he would see with the visor, but there would be a 20% loss. Or
because periphery,
probably. Or just because they needed a reason.
Xander, I need the real answers.
He's a widescreen under that visor for sure.
Yeah,
it's like an IMAX experience.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. And then she said, or we could restore like a normal vision to your eyes.
I'll take superhero eyes, please.
Well, yeah, I guess we've treated it as sort of a superpower, but you know, there is real struggle that we've seen with Geordie, both with fitting in, you know, and we've had this discussion too with Q, who offered to just fix it on the spot, and he was saying, through Wesley, but he was saying, no, like this is what I want to be, and this is how I live. And
remember too, like that's Geordie's choice to make, and that's what Pulaski's offering him, just the choice.
Also, I love Dr. Catherine Pulaski. She's done this.
No, we're not going there. We're not going there.
Love her.
I remember the other thing that I wanted to bring up is Geordie talks to Riva about this and says, your chorus and my visor are the same thing. And I took down the note. I'm sorry. These three people are not hunks of metal.
Let's hold for 1 second. Oshi's coming through pretty loud on your recording. You muted yourself.
Sorry, that's going to be in your recording.
Yeah.
Let me get him.
Okay. Well, or lose him.
Get in here right now. Stop that barking. You stop that.
I like that this is on video.
I know.
Also, she muted herself, but we could still sometimes hear her. That was weird.
Oh, that was me also doing voices.
Oh. I bought it.
Yeah. That was my Becca impression.
Oh, I missed it. I'll have to watch the recording.
Becca, what were you saying about the chorus not being metal?
Their metal is F.
When Jordy and Riva first meet, he says, your visor, much like my chorus, helps you to communicate with others. And I was like, yeah, totally. I get that. We're the same thing. But then I thought about the fact that this dog is a piece of shit.
Whoa, what is he doing? You put him in the backyard. Oh, I'm glad she's talking to him. This. Yeah, like what's the strategy here?
Now listen, sleeps are bullshit.
You can't negotiate with the dog. Go get him. Kill the dog.
No. I do not agree.
No, don't kill the dog. The dog's super adorable. He's just loud and obnoxious. I don't know how he did it when that dog was a puppy, because he did not bark much. He just whined.
But
he was on set for every show.
Yeah. He would be in the studio.
Yeah, we shot a ton of Game the Game and had live shows with him. Sometimes we would have the Oshi cam.
Yeah, I remember. It was good times.
It was good times. It was good times.
We should make a society about that.
Oshi, your punishment is to sit on my lap and bark into the microphone.
Exactly what you wanted.
Okay, we fixed the problem. Come.
No.
Hello.
Wow.
I know that Oshi is in the camp of defending Dr. Catherine Pulaski too. So
Pulaski lover, we call him.
Yeah. Welcome.
We have a lot of long discussions about this, and Oshi's coming around to the fact, but it turns out Oshi doesn't think Data's a person either. So that's part of the
machinery, but no substitution for a Greek chorus.
Yeah. What do you guys think about these 3 living, breathing humans being compared with this hunk of metal that is a visor?
I think it's an analogy, less a really direct thing. I think they're beating it over the head that they want the audience to understand the role that the chorus plays versus him. I still don't think it's very important after all. Like, we spend half the episode going over this over and over and like new people getting used to who's talking, but like, okay, it's kind of a cool nuance, I guess, but it doesn't really heighten very much, right? Like, it didn't really deliver anything new.
Yeah. And it really feels like weird cult shit.
Maybe. Yeah. It also, I feel like
subservient slave behavior. I dislike.
Right.
But they all seemed, I mean, none of them seemed like captive or anything like that. They all seemed, and everybody seemed to be in
Stockholm syndrome, Jake.
Riva syndrome, you mean?
Well, I mean,
Riva syndrome.
They don't have very much longer anyway, so it's fine.
Ooh, good point. They get vaporized, right? So let's actually go through the plot a little bit. So we have Riva and his passion, and they pursue Troy a little bit.
And I would like to say Marina Sirtis feels no chemistry with this plot line.
You know, I will say I thought Marina Sirtis did a good job on the first date portion when Passion left, and she did a lot. She did all of the speaking in that scene, not all the literals, or she did all the literal speaking, but she didn't do all the figurative speaking because he had a lot of lines as well. And it was, I could see that she was conveying that she was still enjoying and being intrigued by the communication they were having.
Yes, so intellectually, but sexually there was nothing there for me.
I also just, I don't think he really had much of a presence, and maybe this is the acting note that you're trying to give, but they talked about him in a much more positive way than he seemed to like exude. He was just kind of, he had a very magnificent beard. I'll give him that. But beyond that, it was just like, he's just kind of another guy, right?
Yeah. And we'll get into the plot point of the planets and his actual job, but Troy had to escort him to his quarters because he requested on the bridge with Picard's permission.
Yeah.
And this really, really bothered me that she's being essentially whored out. You know, she's supposed to sleep with him now, or at least has to be alone with him because her captain gave this nod that said, yes, you will walk him. I give my consent. When, you know,
there was such an opportunity there. And I thought thought Picard might say something like, well, she's free to do as she wishes. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
but,
with her permission, not with the captain's. What?
They dance around formality a lot in this show to a way that makes it feel like we're misreading some of those things. Because remember, like, this guy is a diplomat, so he has to, like, obey every sense of decorum. Now, that being said, he sure loses his temper a lot for a guy who's supposed to bring people together.
Yeah.
Like, even in their first meeting, he, like, interrupts Picard and you hear one of the voices go, talk to me. It's like, you have to understand people are not used to this. You've been doing this all of your life. Has this always been an easy orientation that you've put them through? And if so, why haven't you streamlined it a little bit?
Well, it's a very Trumpian form of politics that seems to work because somehow this election is still competitive.
How do you always make these connections?
Because we live in a fucked up world, Jake.
Well, I mean, the connection is there in that maybe this is how he's established. It's easy to explain to people or establish dominance or something like that in the conversation. So there could be many reasons for that. But
back up. Wait.
Yeah, nonverbal communities, like when you get in their face and say, talk to me.
Yeah, he's a negotiator who takes dominance in a conversation to open a negotiation.
Well, if you're dealing with hostile starship captains a lot, like he could
How is Picard hostile?
I'm just saying there could have been a precedent to how he does it. I'm just making.
Do you not
making this up? I agree.
That this comes from here and this comes from here, and you need to switch your eye line appropriately. You asshole! I just was really uncomfortable by the fact that it seems against decorum for Passion to be the only version that speaks to Troy and for Intellect to speak to everyone else. It seems disrespectful. If I were Troy, I'd be like, use that part. We are on a starship bridge right now.
That's a good point.
Maybe you come to my quarters later and you can talk to me with passion. But right now, I am a professional at work and you need to speak to me with intellect.
It's like the brain, the heart, and the boner's always talking to me. What the hell? Why?
Shut up, we're at work, boner.
So just to sort of, this is how I justified this as well. The reason that I could see him being more comfortable doing something like that with Troy is because he acknowledges her empathic abilities of like, you can sense that I'm horny for you, so there's no sort of decorum to cover this. I'm going to use my boner to talk to you.
Wait a minute. I was with you until you were like, so you sense that I'm horny, so it's cool.
It's cool, right? We're there.
As a woman who often has been spoken to with passion when I really was trying to talk to intellect, that doesn't make it a two-way street.
Halfway through, I gave up on the argument.
Well, that's more than most people will do, so.
Also, have you met Harmony? Let's just let her talk the whole time.
Let's talk about when he's MIA and Captain Picard has to talk to these two factions on the planet.
What do you want to say about that?
I want to say that they immediately are like, we'll only talk to Riva when Picard is being super nice and they get Riva and Riva comes and his magical, everyone is blown away by his peacemaking skills when he says, brothers, let's come together. We shall meet and make peace. And they're like, wow, only Riva could do this.
Now, I want to defend the line that he gives because I liked this line. I even wrote it down. I thought it was pretty cool because
Give us a dramatic reading, please.
Oh, I didn't know if I write down the whole thing.
Well, you can embellish.
Dramatic interpretation.
Now I got to find it in my notes, though.
Something about like appealing as warriors.
Yeah, so he like appealed to their he appealed to their sense of bravery, right? Like you demonstrate, like you've demonstrated your bravery and courage on the battlefield. Now demonstrate your bravery in a different way by having the courage to meet. Like that appeals to them, right? It doesn't put them on the defensive. It doesn't say the other side is correct. It just says, look, this is what you value, and show me how you value it by coming here and proving it. Mm-hmm. That's
a good. It's very clear. There's no females in high-ranking positions in either of their societies.
Not only is there no female, well, because they'd be at peace if there were, Becca.
Right. That's the problem.
You're welcome. Also, when we get to the mediation scene, I imagine that the scriptwriter's like, all right, so the delegation from them comes up and the delegation from the other group comes up. And then the producer's like, we spent $250,000 on the London set 2 episodes ago. So you get the leader and a guy.
Right. That's all we have makeup for.
And we're going to kill one of the guys. That's all we have makeup for. Their makeup is just like a mess. They're just like a series of ridges and burns and scars.
I bet that's why the chorus looks human.
Mm-hmm.
They spent all their budget on
I was wondering that too.
Boring factions.
He does lack any like sci-fi element, right?
And they had Geordi's real eye contacts, which I'm sure cost something.
Or maybe they reused the same ones.
That's true.
Because they've shown those before. But you know what? Given that, I would prefer to have the Dickensian London, Sherlockian London, 100 years later version in the previous episode than to have makeup here. So I'm here for it.
I will say that if we ever get back out of quarantine times and recording this podcast, I want to do it on the mediation table that they had. Like all three of us at different ends.
Triangular stone table, yes.
I didn't know. So Xander, did they replicate that table and then beam it down?
That's what.
Or do they have a woodworker or stonemason on board?
Well, they might, because they've got a bunch of civilians that have various skills that they only do for fun. But no, I think they mentioned that Geordi was replicating these things. Plus, they make the touch torches that you just go up and touch and they light.
Yeah. That was a nice little treat. I never really considered that. It's like, oh yeah, you could just make your own furniture up there, huh? Just beam it down. You just need a replicator big enough.
Never thought about the fact why people don't redecorate all the time. Like replicate this into this hallway. Ooh, let's replicate a painting right here. If anybody could replicate anything they want, they would have decked out.
We'd also have hoarder problems though, right? Because you're suddenly replicating a bunch of matter and then you're just shoving it in a corner when you can't get rid of it. Well, I guess you could eject it into space, but maybe there's some laws against that.
Oh no, it's recycling. So everything that you replicate can be put back in and they reuse it for other things, including food.
If only recycling were real in our world.
Yeah.
Actually, it just comes from the transporter, right? They just throw it back in the system of all the people who get untransported.
Well, no, it's the antimatter reaction.
Relay?
That's what the warp core is, and that's what keeps it going and make replicators possible. So
and your book right now is in the 3rd edition and available in college bookstores right now, is that right?
And you can see it. It's about transparent aluminum. And
Hyperspace Dynamics by Dr. Jeanneret.
But yeah, this is also can be seen when we offer like ship parts or different things that it's assumed that we're replicating these things for them. And we see in Voyager when they're away from sort of restocking at base that there is a limit to how much you can recycle and reuse in the replicators.
So yeah, that's good they address it in future seasons. That's fun.
Yeah, because they have We Can Make Anything Magic, which is, you kind of have to define it at some point. Give everything limits.
In this first meeting with them too, he's doing his whole spiel and he comes up and he says, now there is no magic. And I expected everything to beam down at that point, like the table. And I was like, oh, that would have been good.
He just conjures a meeting table and torches. And then the head-ridged Starfleet officer goes and touches the torches and conjures fire. Yeah. That's really hilarious. So, the negotiations do not begin well because the chorus gets vaporized. That's also another violent special effect. Like we see flesh and bone in that one.
Through it. Well, it's a disruptor.
And very mildly horrified expressions because I guess they had to hold them for a long time. Oh, I'm being vaporized.
Also, one beam took out 3 things. That's pretty advanced.
Yeah, it's like an AoE spell.
Yeah.
Cool.
I mean, maybe there was only 2 from each delegation because they'd already vaporized each other's populations with this very powerful weapon, and that's the whole community.
Well, didn't Riker mention that as like, what's a possible reason they're going to peace? Because they've killed each other too much, and there's not enough to survive.
Yeah.
The warring factions were at war for, did they say like 15 centuries or something like that?
It's ridiculous.
It's insane.
Even Oshie thinks so.
But it is a true thing about wars that they've just been fighting so long it's become personal, and now it's not even about what.
War never changes.
War never changes. Anyway, the chorus dies. Data learns sign language. Riva's still frustrated. Pulaski makes her offer, and we kind of come to a conclusion of to listen is to understand. And Riva makes his case of like, oh, I need to make my disadvantage an advantage. Mm-hmm. And so he resolves in the end to teach them how to speak to him and thus how to speak to each other.
I would like to reflect, though, that Troy is the hero here. She uses techniques against or for him, you know, and motivates him on his own terms. As she mentioned it, self-confidence is something that you have to build yourself. You can't be given that from someone else. So
and Picard commends her adequately for this. Calls her specially in to say, "Good job."
Hey. Well, I was surprised that they didn't use more of Troy's like mental powers to give him a voice, because he's mentally connecting with the chorus anyway.
Yeah,
I guess that would have been the easy way out. Is to use.
That's what I was wondering. I was like, of all the people who can communicate, she's going to be better than Data, and honestly better than just looking at his hand signals. Like, she can feel what he wants to say.
You would think that that would come more in handy. I thought that she was going to go down to the negotiations and take what he was saying and also add more of her own, because she's not just a chorus that echoes back. She also has a very interesting perspective to give. Mm-hmm. But, you know, this episode was about how this isn't a disability. This is a different advantage. Mm-hmm. And so in knowing that the actor is deaf, that does change my perspective on the episode overall. Yes, they needed more budget to make all these people look not human for me to believe it, but it's interesting information. What we did gloss over is Data, and how when he learned every form of sign language ever, he was at the computer and it was like showing the exact same 6 symbols for different things over and over. And he goes, "Computer, and please increase the speed at which you show me these 6 hand gestures over and over and over." And
the blue ocean, the couple walking along the beach.
Oh, you know, 2 happy people walking along the blue ocean at sunset is the first sentence you should learn in any language.
The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog.
Yes. Every letter.
There it is in the alphabet.
This takes place during a time too when I think there was a lot of effort to put different people of different representations on television. I remember this is around the same time. Let me look up her name. I think it's Laura something.
Although I would have appreciated if there was a person of color in the chorus. They're all white.
Yeah, well,
the
there's
main
that
cast does have diversity, so they.
I feel like they don't. Yeah, they don't always have like a bunch of racial diversity in civilizations. They tend to make them racially the same, which we've noticed both in not great ways in previous episodes. Marlee Matlin, I believe is her name. You might recognize her from The West Wing or from the Seinfeld episode, which her deafness does play into that one. But what I like about that is they're starting to, in the 90s, have people on the shows, but their disability isn't the focal point of it. That's definitely true for her role in The West Wing as well. But there's going to be more and more representation. And I get why you had those hesitations, Becca, about this episode, because it's like kind of a clumsy handling of it a little bit. But I think this is the earliest attempts to destigmatize a lot of these things. So that definitely happens.
Yeah. And I think it just opens it up. I think what was appealing about this was the potential more than the execution. Yeah. This could be cool, and I would love to see other characters that had a great chorus. And again, the day-to-day life, how do they live? Are they in love? Is there a connection biologically? Like, there's so much potential there that they just didn't explore.
Yeah, interesting. I'm thinking about this in terms of a show that I just started watching, which is Pose, which has such great trans representation and young gay love representation that is super hot. So just dropping that little rec.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, it's also one of those questions of like during early representation of these things in like the late 80s and 90s, and there was starting to be even some trans representation on TV and film around this time, but it was done by people who aren't trans. And so now that's an issue because we have a lot more of that diversity in Hollywood and we can do it now, but we couldn't back then, or we could maybe back then, but they didn't make that choice. But it's nice to see that that's actually happening. And in a show like that, it's not always, even though it is a prominent part of the show, it's not always the focal point of every scene.
Yeah, the reason I started watching Pose is because there's an excellent documentary on Netflix called Disclosure that's all about the trans experience. And they talk about their feelings on seeing representation in media of someone not of a gender portraying that gender and how damaging it is. Like when Eddie Redmayne did that really good movie, I forget the name, it won an Oscar. He won an Oscar for it. A girl.
Lady.
It was a lovely movie, but because we think of Eddie Redmayne as a man, seeing him as a woman, we think, oh, well, that's a male actor portraying a woman. And then that's how we start to think of trans people. And that's not what trans people are. They are a woman that was born in a biologically different body than what their gender is.
Off, Becca. Yes, that is right.
Well, it's just because this is something that I'm learning to see in a different way, because I'm seeing this representation, and it's really, really important to those communities that we see these things. So now I'm just saying what I'm learning.
Yes. Also, if you like Pose and want to see more about ballroom culture, I recommend Paris is Burning, and then Legendary, which is a competition show, but it's really well done. And
got my list made.
Well, speaking of lists, we have another episode to watch next week. That's right. It's The Schizoid Man. An away team discovers the dying Dr. Ira Graves, who claims to be Data's grandfather? What?
As you walk away from this episode, I give a strange and sheepish smile that doesn't make sense in context, just like Pulaski did to Jordy after he left the medbay.
I love her so much.
Why did she give that weird smile? I'm sorry, the episode's over.
She's proud of him for the decision that he made.
It was very devilish, and I didn't understand it.
I'm saying right now we will be doing a bonus episode at the end of the season after we watch all the Pulaski episodes, which is the trial of Dr. Pulaski. You will take the prosecution, Becca. You will take the defense, Xander, and we will find a jury of our peers to settle this once and for all. Whether Pulaski's lovable or not, I'm not sure the question.
I have to get one of those English wigs that they still wear. A solicitor's wig. A barrister, yes.
I'll take it. Well, then let's call this court to order.
Yeah.
Or adjourned.
Or adjourned.
Engage.
Adjourned. Let's all say adjourned.
Nah.
Adjourned.
Adjourned.
Good. I'll have
Engaged.
2 adjourned and an engaged. That'll be perfect.
Well, thanks so much for watching us record this. If you're watching on YouTube, we appreciate you. And if you are a patron, thank you so much for being a patron. Thank you. You're amazing. Tell them.
Yes,
you're amazing. We appreciate you. We have a trial coming up for you soon.
I see Rebecca, and I can feel that she feels, and I feel that you're amazing.
That's true. Xander is my chorus.
Right.
Bye.
Bye.